Now, the question I get more than any other question is, how do I get my loved one into a rehabilitation facility? How can we make them go? Or how do we get to the point where they're willing to go? These are really important questions because it really boils down to ultimately, will the person go and do they want to go for the right reasons? Or if you have a situation where they're deflective, they're denial, and they're pushing off their problems onto everybody else and they have every excuse in the book, that's something that's very difficult to work with, and you're not really going to be successful in that stance. Now, in Amanda's case, and if this is the first time seeing me, again, I was married for 25 years and my wife passed away from alcohol use disorder. I'm actually the author of Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism, which again, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it in my link tree, right on this page. And there's also an international link. On that note, it's very important. First, you got to find somebody who's willing and able to go to the rehab facility. And the question I get so many times is, how did you get Amanda to go to her first rehabilitation facility? Well, it was quite simple. She had gotten a DUI. She had gotten her first DUI in 2014. And unfortunately, that really was the catalyst to make her realize that, yeah, I got a problem. When she started having legal issues and when she got arrested because she got, arrested for drunk driving. And I've told the story before. She was supposed to pick me up in Corona. She never made it. We didn't know where she was all day long. And I actually ended up being kind of stuck in another city. And I had to find somebody else to come get me. This was kind of a turning point for her. And unfortunately, I remember the conversation after she came home from being arrested. And I go, look, Amanda, you've got a DUI. This is affecting your health. I mean, it is. You've been drunk for months, weeks. I mean, look at what happened yesterday. You drank during the day. I called you at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to come pick me up, and you were too drunk to even drive out to pick me up. And I was in a kind of a very difficult situation, and you were unable to even help me. You can't pick up our son from school anymore. And I mean, I just made a list of things that the alcohol was causing in her life and how it was affecting our son and us. And I said, look, this is a health issue at this point. Okay, you are destroying your liver, your kidneys, your pancreas. Okay, you're not making good decisions, and it's getting worse and worse. You probably should have been in a rehab 10 years ago, but now you absolutely have to get this thing figured out, because now you got this DUI. And unfortunately, the DUI was a motivator, but I wish she had been motivated years before this. And I did bring up the fact that she did have ascites 4 years earlier, where they pumped out 50 pounds of fluid out of her system. And you go, your liver is obviously wearing out. That was 4 years ago, and you really haven't stopped. It hasn't slowed you down. So what do you think we should do? And I can remember her just going, I think you're right. I do need to do something. Okay. And I said, let's do this. You call the insurance company and you find a location that you're comfortable with, and I will take you there. But it needs to be done today. And I can remember having this conversation in the morning. And this was really kind of the extent of our intervention. When I come home, I want you to have a place that you're going to go to, and I'm going to take you when I get home from work. And she said, okay. And there's a piece of me that just went, she's going to finally take ownership. Ideally, these are the kind of interventions that you want to have. When it's a conversational intervention, they got to be sober and they have to be present in the conversation. I mean, if they're looking at their phone, if they're, flagrantly not really listening to what's going on, you gotta approach it differently. And it really depends on the situation. Husband-wife situation is different than parent-child or child-parent situation. Bottom line is you gotta write down a list of the things that the alcohol has caused in both your life and in the life of the alcoholic. Make it positive. Make it a positive spin. Look, we're here for you, but it's time to get help. We love you, but it's time to get help because it's only going to get worse if you don't do this. What's going to happen if you don't do this? What's going to happen if you don't go to rehab? You're going to be drunk every day continually, like the way you are. There's nothing changing here. So something has to change, and that has to be the theme. Something has to change. Now, the next stage is if you have to have somebody that needs an ultimatum. That's not always the best way, but sometimes it's a last ditch effort. Now, when you have a situation where somebody's really defiant and you do have to get leverage on them, say you have a son or daughter, and you're going to have to say, look, if you don't go to rehab, you're going to have to leave our home. Well, we're not going to provide you financially. We're not going to have a roof over your head. We're not going to take care of you. And quite frankly, we're going to go no contact. And if that means if you need to go become homeless, I'm not saying that's okay with us. I'm not saying we're not going to worry about you, but we're no longer going to enable this behavior. Okay, so you're going to a detox rehabilitation facility today, or you're no longer living with us, and we're going to really kind of walk away from the situation. We're going to make it your problem, and we're no longer going to make it our problem. And sometimes this is the conversation you have. Is it optimal? Absolutely not. Because you might not get the reaction that you want. You might get a further dig into a defensive mode. But it comes a point where there are no alternatives left. And you have to create your boundary and your position. And every scenario is a little bit different. You can take little elements of every one of these scenarios, but so much of it is up to the alcoholic. And if they do have this opportunity, make it into, this is an opportunity. Okay, you must be sick and tired of waking up drunk or intoxicated, or you got to be tired of hungover and just having to deal with this on a regular basis, having to sneak around, trying to find alcohol, consuming it, through your day. Look, it's affected your work, it's affected your schooling, it's affected your life, it's affected our relationships. Let's change that. Okay, keep beating that kind of theme into it. And I really, I hope that makes sense. And really, the last thing I want to say, I have a complete coaching program. Set up a breakthrough call. Again, the link is in the link tree. The call takes about 45 minutes or so. We do a deep dive into what's going on with you and your life. And it's really designed and looking for people who want to change their life and the life of their family. This is for somebody who's actively seeking help. Not for somebody who's defiant, who's a stage 4 alcoholic and nobody can help them. This is to get somebody who's ready and willing, and they're coachable, and they want to rock and roll, and they want to bring their family into it if that's an element. Okay, really hope that makes sense. Links in the bio. Again, thanks so much for listening.